Welcome all to DeFi Crypto and Airdrops, where we introduce you to the future of finance, where wallets are your bank, DeFi is your playground, and airdrops reign free crypto. I am Mike, aka Veteran Crypto, and this is Jeff, aka the Blockchain Report, and our special guest. We got Lucas from CryptoLabs Research. How's it going, fellas?
Dude, that was an epic intro. And I think a lot of things just started ticking green up top. So maybe there's a correlation to that. Maybe not. I don't know. The
Maybe we're
energy of the
pumping the
crypto space
markets.
just went through the roof or something. I like it.
So, how you gentlemen doing?
Doing
Dude,
good.
any
Doing good
any
over
day
here.
talking about crypto is a good day.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and when the markets are pumping.
There's been a
The
little bit of
market's
a
been
pump today.
pumping. I honestly haven't looked. I got so my portfolio has become so hands off. It's so systemized. I used to look like 3-4 times a day. Now I look maybe every 2-3 days, and I really like that.
Man,
Um,
you're getting me excited, man. It's like that's what that DeFi is all about, man. I feel like I'm screaming from the rooftops a lot of times because I'm just telling people DeFi isn't this scary specter that is gonna drain your wallet and take your crypto if you
unless you
take.
don't know what you're doing.
Yes, you need to educate yourself, and there is a slow, steady process to get into it to ensure that you're doing it properly. And and one of those things is watching your channel, watching channels like ours, and people that are genuinely interested in other people's success. But real
Absolutely.
quick, before we jump into it, Jeff, do you mind sharing our guest socials and our socials?
Oh yeah, let me pull that up real quick. And
You guys are advanced here. I like it. All this tech stuff. Big fan.
yeah, no,
I
I've
love it.
I've kind of upgraded some stuff on my end, so I'm getting new
Getting used to
sound.
it.
I might have to update my GPU and stuff soon. So it's it's been a lot of fun.
Dude, I'm
It,
I'm such a huge believer in this just triggers this part of me. So if I'm on a blind, let me know. But I really hugely love keeping it simple. And it's why I think I fell in love with DeFi and structuring portfolios in a way of like, how can I keep my life as simple as possible? Um, and I guess that also boils down to like we use so little tech, and maybe that's good, maybe that's bad. But I love it. I love what you guys are doing. This is great. Fancy, fancy.
I can
yeah,
see you, Jeff. Go ahead.
got it. Okay. So you can check out our channel, DeFi Crypto Airdrop. We go live Monday and Saturday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. And sprinkled in a few times a week, Vet goes live with some good DeFi nuggets. And you can check out Lucas CryptoLabs Research. I know I have your YouTube.
Same thing. CryptoLabs research for YouTube,
Yeah,
and then
CryptoLabs
personal socials
Research.
or just Lucas Rubik's.
And yeah, make sure that you're following the right ones because I just was on a spaces earlier today and
Dude,
this
it's
person
crazy.
got contacted by somebody who was trying to
Yep.
get him on a space and they had to download, a Zoom thing and he got drained for, over 10K
Crazy.
and
Crazy.
point 0.1 Bitcoin. And it's like, oh my God, man. So yeah, make sure that, you're following the right people and you can catch me, the BCR 142 and Vet. Wait, no, Vet's right here at Veteran for Crypto, and we will not ask you for any money or we won't DM you first to send you links or any kind of crazy stuff. So, and also Vet
Good.
goes live Sunday night on his channel, Life, Liberty, and Liquidity, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. They just kind of talk life, all kinds of topics, wide ranging.
Smoke cigars,
Um,
drink whiskey, and talk shit.
yeah,
My
yeah,
it's
it's a
my
good
my
time.
brother. He's a lawyer down in Texas and has a title company, and then his buddy is a licensed financial advisor.
Yeah.
And then I'm just an old retired vet that lives in a cabin in the woods. But we like to have interesting people on, and we just talk about whatever the hot topic is. If it's politics, if it's the pyramids, the pillars under the pyramids, or whatever it is. We just talk about whatever. So.
Let's go.
Well, let's go ahead and jump right into this. Because I don't want to waste any time. I want to hear everything that Lucas has to say. But I mean, if you could just share a little bit about your, whatever you're comfortable with, about your personal story and kind of your journey and how you got into DeFi.
Sure. I mean, I'll make it quick and just grab the highlights. Worked on the oil rigs. So after high school, didn't get an education, couldn't afford it. We grew up in a trailer park. Immigrant parents. After high school, went on the oil rigs because that was the most amount of money I could possibly make. I had a interesting kind of upbringing, so to speak, because my parents were European. Immigrants didn't have much money, and they really valued education. So we lived in a trailer park, but they found some way. They were very entrepreneurial and very they could make a way out of no way. So they made a agreement with this small school. It was kind of like this private school, not super fancy, but it was a private school, and they made an agreement that my mom drove the buses to school and back and forth because then she'd just be home with me, and my dad fixed the bus engines in his spare time, and that got me, whatever it costs, $500 or $800 a month or whatever private school is. Um, they thought smaller classes, extra attention from the teachers would be good for me. And it probably was in some way, but the issue was most of those people were really really well off. I remember being a kid and going to people's houses and they had like pools, which was crazy, and they had a basement. We were in a trailer, and it created this really weird thing in me of like, now I knew we didn't have much. And I remember from an early age, probably like 7 or 8, I was like, we used to go into stores and I knew better to ask my parents to buy anything because I knew they couldn't afford it. And one day I finally built up the courage. I really wanted this thing. I don't even remember what it was, like a car toy or something.
Yeah, yeah.
They're like, no, we can't afford it. And I remember making an agreement in that store of like, I'm gonna have so much fuck you. I'm gonna have so much money. Excuse the swearing.
Dude, it's okay. Swear all you want, man.
Perfect. So much fuck you money that I will be able to get whatever I want. And I guess I just made an agreement some early age. And I remember like studying money, kind of being interested in money from an early age. After high school, went on the oil rigs, just wanted to make as much, wanted to start investing. Um, so I went on the oil rigs. I started investing in the S&P or just in index funds, basically. Worked up there for 5, 6 years. Bought an apartment in Vancouver. Was really doing. I was doing well for a 24, 25 year old, whatever that means. I had a BMW. Everything was financed. I had a mortgage financed. Obviously, I had a BMW finance. I had a brand new Jeep, and I had 2 motorcycles. Payments were killing me, and I realized that now I'm chained to this job.
Yeah.
And at 24, 25, I was smoking cigarettes. By then, I was numbing the pain of my existence through alcohol and then popping painkillers. There's a long story to that. I'll skip it. Either way, I was kind of just doing whatever I could as best as I could as a 25-year-old to try and escape my reality. And I felt, I don't know, the golden handcuffs or whatever you call those, like people, whatever
Yeah.
people call that. Then I'm sitting around this. We were standing behind a shift. It was long days, 12, 14 hours in the bush for like 3 weeks straight. Everyone's depressed. Everyone's cheating on their wives, broken families, drugs, alcohol, all that stuff. I'm
Man, it
smoking a
sounds like you were
cigarette
in
at
the
25.
military.
Dude, there was a lot of ex-military there and ex-cons. That's the kind of attracted really awesome guys, just a rough
Yeah.
crowd.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm sitting in the circle, standing in the circle, smoking a cigarette, and everyone's talking about how shitty their lives is, how much they hate it. These guys are 40, 50, 60. And I just like knew that if I stay here, I'm going to end up like them. I knew it.
Yeah.
And I knew the only way out was just to quit. So I
The
went to the boss, I
company you
quit.
keep.
I knew I had to. I
Yeah.
didn't, I was ready for all the consequences that would come with it. So I quit the rigs. 6 months later, I had to sell my apartment, sell the BMW, sell the Jeep, all at a loss. Ended up in a $500 basement suite. Had a pedal bike to go to the grocery store. 25, 26.
Mm.
But I felt the happiest and the freest and the most liberated I've ever felt. It was like a blank page in front of me. I'm like, I can do whatever the hell I want. Let me figure
Yep.
this out. I started studying like, how do people make money? Like, what are 88% of millionaires are like self-made or something. So I was like, what do these people do? It was all either started early in a company and had ownership of that company. So they got some equity in a company. They were entrepreneurs or business owners of some sort,
Yeah.
and they were all had a common theme of investing. So I started studying that world. Every book behind me, I've read probably once or twice. I was just a student of the game.
Yeah.
Started a business. First business made around 6 figures a year. Realized it was a fitness business. Realized I couldn't scale it past that. Tried hiring people, but it wasn't working. Put some money aside, 40, 50 grand. Got into my second business, which was a lot around marketing. I had a knack for marketing. I was in Facebook ads way before a lot of people were. That's how I built my
Yeah.
fitness business. And from there, built this marketing business, this agency. That's where I made my first $1 million. Started investing that $1 million. And then, long story short, during COVID, or whatever you want to call that, um, whatever you want to call that situation that humans went through, and no one wants to talk about it, and no one wants to
Right.
admit it
Right.
happened. I pulled most of my money out of my corporate accounts and my personal accounts. I donated to the truckers convoy that happened in Canada because those were my boys, and I was cheering them on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when Canada was shutting down bank accounts, I moved most of my money onto the blockchain, and that's when I really started. I was already buying Bitcoin and some ETH, but
Yeah. Yeah.
that's when I had $2 million on the blockchain. I was like, I better actually know what I'm doing here. Um, and that was like my introduction, where when I get into something, I get into it. So I shut down the last business, kind of exited it, and then me and Colin got together. Who he helped me build what is the Underdog Investor Group. But either way, we kind of got
Yeah.
together and
And we'll
said,
definitely get into that because, yeah, Colin,
yeah,
I've learned a lot
he's a
from him.
he's a beast. But we just got
Yeah. Yeah.
that's really where the story and the really journey into that. And then I owned a bunch of Bitcoin, owned a bunch of assets, Sol, ETH, and I was like, well, there must be a way to cash flow this, and that's where my interest in it happened. I spent a long time studying. I read even books on like blockchain and freaking engineering. I didn't know what I was reading, but I really wanted to understand like what is if I deposit $1 million or $2 million, what is actually
Yeah.
happening, and
Yeah.
where's this
Exactly.
liquidity going, and how are these yields created? And that's kind of ended up here, and this is my new passion. Probably will be for quite a while.
That's awesome, man. It's kind of odd because it's almost in a couple of variances, but your story is very, very similar to mine. Instead of oil rigs, I was in the military, but
Yeah,
yeah, grew up poor, grew up with nothing in trailer parks and welfare, and just told myself, no matter what I do, I'm gonna be successful
dude,
someday.
let's go.
So yeah, no, definitely. So tell us a little bit about CryptoLabs research because I mean it's very unique. I looked for quite a while for some place that because I was wanting to get into DeFi for a long time, and everywhere I looked, there was nobody that was really teaching it. There's a huge deficit of people that are legitimately teaching people DeFi, and I'm not quite sure why, but then I ran into Crypto Labs research, and it's such a comprehensive, not just channel with good videos and good quality content, but your free course is really good to lay
Good.
the foundation of people's knowledge and entry into DeFi, and then of course you have your paid course that is more of a community and a mastermind group that they can draw from yours and Collins knowledge and experience and things like that, and each other's. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm a big believer in. I really love the creator economy. So, and maybe some people watching here do. I'm just like, just so you know, as you scale your content or you try to help on the interwebs in whatever way you're doing, like 99% of people are never going to pay you. And so I know that. So I want to get as many people as we can into DeFi with really solid education. So how can we create really good free stuff and a really good free course, which is just going through an update? Like, how can we give someone the education so they don't get effed, basically?
Yeah,
Um, and I know that 1 or 2% of our audience is going to want more of a community and a mastermind and access to our instructors, which we now have 11 of them. Um, and I know some people will be like, oh, like that's a scam, or why would you do that? Like, I really don't care about the noise. I just know that I can stay in pure alignment if we give out as much as we can away for free. And then we're
mhm,
going to always have a small amount of people. We've had people who spent 40, 50 grand with us to learn this stuff. And there's people who've deployed over $10 million. And so they're happy to pay for experts to guide them through it. And then we use that capital or that revenue to be able to hire a team and go harder on the media and just keep creating as much value as we can. So to me, it's like a little ecosystem. It's been a lot of fun to build. So that's basically what it is. It's like, how can we educate people in the DeFi space? CryptoLabs research was created from actually when I was investing in DeFi. I was in Mexico during COVID or whatever you want to call it. And Um, and family and friends were just asking me how I'm living. Like, do you have a job? Do you have a business? I said, I'm kind of doing this investing thing in crypto and DeFi. They asked me to start a fund, and I did a shit ton of research, and I realized I am not staying up all night managing people's money. So I just told them, hey, for $100 a month, if I created something and you can just see exactly what I'm doing, would that be of
Yeah.
interest to you? A bunch of people said yes. I told Colin, if we can get 100 people, it'll be kind of like a little side hobby. We'll make a little bit of money doing it. It'll be a lot of fun. And if it doesn't work, we'll just shut it down. And within a short period of time, we had a couple hundred, and then we had 1,000. And now we've worked with over 3,000 people. And we have 2,000 kind of members and clients in our community. And we really want to grow it to 10,000. We have our first in-person event in June. So we're getting off the internet and we're starting to meet in person. And then after that, we want to do quarterly events. So we have 100 people flying out here in
Mhm.
June to do a 3-day kind of DeFi crypto investor, basically mastermind, 100 people. And then we want to start scaling those to how can we get 1,000 people out every quarter from the community to meet,
Mm.
talk, share, talk entrepreneurship, investing, investor mindset, blah, blah, blah. And then I moved to this city for a purpose to start building an in-person office. We want to build a headquarters and then be able to house team, or at least some of the team, in-house, so we could just crank down on the media, the podcasts, bring in investors from all around the world, do the interviews, blah blah blah. So this isn't like a little side gig. This is like, dude, we want to build.
No, like I said, I mean, when I found you guys, you definitely, I could tell you had your shit wired tight. 'Cause,
We love it.
just the way that, you and, Colin and the others, the way that collaborate, the way that the materials put together, the way that the course is put together, you can tell that there is,
I mean,
some
we can always
genuine time and
improve.
money.
Like, I do appreciate that. I think there's a lot of improvement, but I also think every man needs a and woman, or I think every human needs, and especially men. Like you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think every man kind of needs a
A
mission,
tribe.
and just like
Yeah.
you can only sit around and do nothing for so long. And I'm like, we are going to build kind of the Dave Ramsey. I'd say what they've built in their headquarters is very defense, and like how do we? It's playing defense. We want to play offense. We want to find more aggressive strategies, but really like whatever Ramsey built, we study that model minus the financial products they sell. And it's like something we'd really, really like to build and create just kind of a movement of guys like you and me and who
Yeah.
relate to my story and that story, who are like, yo, yes, I wasn't taught this shit. Yes, I came from the dirt. Yes, I don't
Yep.
have much. I don't have connections, but 8 or 9 of 10 millionaires are
You can change
self-pay.
your
And it's
stars,
like,
man.
and you don't have to be smart and no education. Like F all that. I think, in fact, street smarts, I think, is a little bit better than book smarts. In fact, probably
Just gotta
almost
have
all of the
you
time.
gotta have that
Pretty much.
hustle. You
Yeah.
gotta have that hustle. Well, let's dive into. I mean, if you could, let's start breaking down just some of the basics of DeFi.
Yep.
So,
Dude,
kind
love
of
it.
what's yield farming, and and it just how is it that like, or just break down yield farming, I
Sure.
guess.
I think I've been trying to explain this for so long, and every time I get to do it, I think I do a little bit better job of it. So the way I've been explaining it recently is whatever banks can do in like a centralized banking system. So think of like what can a bank do? A bank can lend, a bank can borrow, a bank can um, a bank can or the stock market. You can go generate yields. You can go invest in the stock market. You can buy stocks, and there's always some central middleman, either the bank or the broker, who's going to be taking a little piece of it. And that's where most of the money is made in that market, anyways. So your broker doesn't care if you're making or losing money. Most mutual funds with their management fees aren't on performance, they're just on total capital, so they don't give a shit if you're making money or not.
Yeah.
And that's most of the financial system. That's changed a bit with smaller banks coming up, although they usually just get, I can get into a conspiracy theories around that, but anyway, smaller banks have come around, and self-managed funds and kind of like index funds, which lower MERs or lower management fees or whatever, like that's all fine and dandy, but it's still archaic. And if you think about it, the banking system hasn't really changed. The only probably big upgrade to it was like you have online banking, which isn't that big of a
Yeah.
deal, and you have a Visa, which is not a plus to the consumer, by the way. Like I think that's one of
Oh
the
hell,
biggest sins that humanity has ever created, is 20-25% interest rates on just the vulnerability of exploiting the vulnerabilities of
it's
people.
predatory. It's definitely
Oh,
predatory.
and then you've got bank machines and like bank cards. Like that's basically the only innovation that's happened. And there's no competition. They don't care. They like the way it is. And that system is the system. In comes blockchain, in comes DeFi, and whatever banks can do, we can do. Yet
Better.
the ones who are providing the liquidity are, you could call it the middlemen, but the fees aren't ridiculous like they would be for your broker. I think I bought some stocks like, during that big dip a little while ago, like a week, 2 weeks ago or whatever. When was that? Last Monday, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
I was ready and I topped up a lot of my tax-free. In Canada, we have these tax-free savings accounts that you can kind of top up, and all the yields and all the earnings you generate are tax-free. Topped those up because last year my contribution room increased, and I don't know what I paid in fees, but it was something stupid. And that was through TD Bank. All I'm saying is with DeFi, with the blockchain, there is no middleman. There's no like employees. It's all smart contract based. It's all code, and code can't lie. Code can't be manipulated, which is why Bitcoin is, I mean, the asset to hold. In my opinion, the code is literally perfect. Um,
Not to
and
mention it's 24/7, 365. There's no
and
banker's
it's
hours.
open. Yes.
Yeah.
Which has again pros and cons. So there are vulnerabilities to DeFi. There's people getting scammed, like you said. Someone clicks on a thing and thinks they're chatting with Jeff, and next thing you know, the scammer Jeff takes all your funds because you thought you were talking with Jeff. You got your ski phrase and you got effed. It's also kind of still clunky, much less clunky than it was. There is a bit of a learning curve. And it's open 24/7, which is good in a way. I can send $10 million. I don't have $10 million to send, but I could send $10 million over
Yeah.
to Australia Sunday at 2 a.m. and it would cost me $1 or $2, and the person would receive it instantly.
Mhm.
Versus banks asking 101 questions of where this money came from, which
Or if you need a
blood
loan.
pressure spikes when they ask me that. But gamblers, I was in Vegas, and I'm not big on gambling, but if I'm in Vegas, I'll go take $100 with. I was with the wife, and we just kind of enjoyed pulling some slots and had fun with it. But my heart kind of broke looking out at the sea of people, and they weren't smiling gambling. They were smoking, they were drinking, and they were. It just looked like freaking drones.
Yeah.
Like it was kind of depressing when you
Yeah.
could see past the noise and the music and just like zone
Mhm.
all that out and just look at what was actually happening. And DeFi and crypto has created, we don't see it because they're in their basements on the computer, but a lot of gamblers, and they're trying to get their fix. And now it's open 24/7 and you can do it. There's no regulation. You can upload all the money you have. Maybe you have a grand, or maybe you're deep in debt, or maybe you borrow money or remortgage your house. And it's like created this big wave of gamblers who are ruining their lives, um, and they're gambling, and gambling is such a huge addiction that I don't think is addressed. So crypto has created that and made that really accessible, which is the part about it I hate.
Yeah, I mean, everything's a double-edged sword, I mean,
Totally.
freedom of speech, there's a
Totally.
there's a lot of things,
True.
it's
True.
it's there's not a whole lot of things out there that's all upside, but well, I know that the thing that kept me out of DeFi for a long time, was the specter of impermanent and divergence loss.
Yep.
What's the easiest way that you can break that down to somebody to where it's not as scary? Because I've heard you say it, but I kind of want the audience to hear it.
I mean, I think it's like there's paper losses and there's locked in losses, and I think step one of understanding impermanent loss would be just like your buy and hold portfolio. You're holding some Bitcoin, you bought it at 50. Now Bitcoin on paper is worth 40. And if you sell it, you're going to lock in that $10,000 loss if you bought a whole Bitcoin. And if you don't sell it, it's just on paper. And as Bitcoin comes back to 50 and 60 and 80 and 250 in the future, all of that is just gains on paper. But unless you hit sell, you don't lock it in, which is why most people round trip every cycle. So impermanent loss, step one to understanding it is if your portfolio, or we're going to call it if your assets or if your position drops in value and gets kicked out of range in one way or the other, or just drops in value and you click a button, you rebalance, you do something, basically you sell those assets, you're going to lock in some impermanent loss. What we as yield farmers want to do, or if you're actually providing liquidity and liquidity pools, is we want to generate yield, and we want that yield to outpace impermanent loss. And so it's really important to understand which assets you're actually investing in. Because if you're starting to get into some really sketchy stuff just looking for yield and you make 20%, over a month because you're going crazy, but your portfolio is down half, you're never going to recoup that impermanent loss. And now you're in an interesting position where do I wait this out and have these assets go back to the price where I bought them? Or are they shitty assets that probably never will? And now you got to lock in those losses. So we're really big on blue chip stuff, wider ranges. And, as your portfolio fluctuates, and we can talk about this stuff, um, if you take action as your portfolio drops or your portfolio increases, you're going to lock in impermanent loss, and you have to do a quick calculation to see how many days of this new yields in this new range will it take me to recoup that impermanent loss. And if it's, you've got it. Yeah, that's like step one to understanding it. Did I do an okay job of it?
Yeah, no, definitely, and I don't know if you noticed, but I kind of made like a little photo, with the guy holding some tablets, and it's they're your rules, DeFi rules. So yeah,
I see that
basically
on
believe.
TikTok or on X.
Yeah, yeah. Believing in the assets. So only getting involved in assets that, like you said, blue chips. Good solid projects that if you end up going out of range towards the bottom end, that you don't mind holding for a while and wait for it to come back into range. If it's a meme coin, it's like this might be going to zero. But if it's
Totally,
something like right now,
probably will, probably
I'm
will.
out the bottom end on ETH. On a ETH
Yep.
USDC liquidity pool. I needed to go back up to $2,400 before I'm back in range. But I have other
Yep.
stuff earning for me, and it's been sitting there for about a month now. And I'm just gonna leave it there because at some point, ETH will go back up to $2,400. So I'm not gonna
And
lock in
that's
those losses.
exactly how I approached it. I'm like, I'm holding BTC, I'm holding ETH, I'm holding Sol, I'm holding Sui.
Yep.
If I can generate yields doing it, then why not? And if the price of that Sui or that ETH goes down and I'm kicked out
Yeah.
of range, I'm just holding ETH anyway. I could actually, we could get into this, but basically, you could exit that liquidity pool and just hold that ETH spot in your wallet, no problem. And as the price
Oh,
of ETH goes
absolutely.
going
Yeah,
up,
you
you
could
could
just hodl
reopen
that.
positions. Yeah,
Yeah. No, I mean, and that's the way I look at it. Is right now I'm hodling a couple of ETH.
totally.
It's okay. So
I like to explain it like we cannot control. I wish I could because I'd be a multi gazillionaire, but I can't control what the market does. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I can't control the value of my portfolio, but what I can do is I just can create more assets. And so if I owned 1.1 Bitcoin today, I could own 1.2 Bitcoin tomorrow. That's a bit of a stretch because a zero point 0.1 Bitcoin is a lot, but you get the point. Uh, if I own 1.1.0 of whatever asset I'm talking about, if I could find a way to create zero point 0.1 more tomorrow and put it into my bag, then I'm playing the long game as long as these assets are something I want to hold long term. Sometimes, you can play with stuff that you wouldn't want to hold long term, but you would absolutely play that game very differently. But that's really close to trading. And I'm just not into, and I'm in this stuff, I'm not into checking my portfolio even every day, to be honest with you.
yeah,
Just
I
not into
bet
it.
you had the VV pool a few
yeah.
months ago that you were in that kind of
No,
went
it bit me.
wrong
I
way,
chased I chased APR.
Yeah.
It was a couple
Every
of
time.
thousand. Well, and I ended up breaking even, because I earned about $1,000. I put 1,600 in. I earned about $1,000, and I ended up getting out with at about $600. So
Got it.
I broke even, but it could have gotten really ugly, you know,
Yep.
and it taught me a lesson. It was like, all right, don't. And it was just a small portion of my portfolio. It wasn't a major
Yep.
chunk of my. It was just kind of like a little gamble just to try it out because
I think
of course.
everyone's got to scratch that itch. Like I would say take a small percentage of your portfolio and scratch that itch so you don't like, I don't know what's it
Yeah,
called. You don't relapse and then gamble your
yeah.
whole portfolio. I like to play, but I just don't talk about it much because then everyone's gonna do the same. I'm just like, that's just for
Exactly.
me, and I just do my little thing over here, and I'll gamble
It,
and buy
and
some cool
most of the
stuff.
time when I do it is I want to make the mistakes so that I can teach our community. It's like, hey, I tried this. This is how it worked out for me. It doesn't always end well. So
Got
I
it.
want to share my negative experiences and my positive
Yep.
experiences. I don't want to just make everything look like rose-colored glasses. So,
Yep.
but so let's dive into something else that something else simple. What is the difference between a full range position and a concentrated liquidity position?
Cool. Have you guys? Maybe you can bring it up on your screen, or if you want to. But you've
Yeah,
seen that liquidity curve. Like when you provide liquidity, you've seen those charts and those graphs that explain um like what happens when you provide liquidity in a concentrated liquidity pool. And you don't have to. Maybe anyone watching this or watching the replay could Google it. Like you could go on Uniswap and read some of the white paper. Um, I'll try to explain as best as I can here, as simply as I can. Think about
here we go.
if I want to provide liquidity for Bitcoin, let's say Bitcoin, an asset. Let's just use an asset that's, the price of the asset is $10,000. And I want to provide liquidity into that pool. In full range, I'd be providing liquidity from $1 all the way to infinite amount of dollars. And the rewards or the fees that are generated would be spread across all liquidity providers. That's how liquidity provider used to be done. So if I provide liquidity in a full range liquidity pool, there's, millions, if not tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars of liquidity being provided into that pool, and everyone is getting their piece of that share equally, no matter what the price of that asset is. If it's $10,000 or if it's trading at $8 or $2 or $100 or $15,000, it's going to be provided very evenly across.
Hmm.
In concentrated liquidity, we're just finding a more efficient use of that capital. And now we can start making decisions of, hey, I want to provide liquidity from $9,000 to $11,000 of that asset, whatever asset. And as long as I stay within that range, I'm earning the fees. And
Yeah.
if I'm not in that range, I'm not earning that fees. But it's concentrated because you're concentrating the liquidity and you're earning a lot more in fees because of it. That's the simplest way I think I can explain that.
Yeah.
And the tighter you go, the more fees you earn, and the wider you go, the less fees you earn. And I'm simplifying this like crazy.
Oh,
But just for
absolutely.
someone to understand, there's pros and cons. The tighter you go, the more active you have to be, the more impermanent loss you can see, but the more fees you're going to earn because you're just more efficiently providing that capital.
Mhm.
The wider you go, the less fees you're going to earn, but the longer you may stay in that range, the less
Yeah.
impermanent loss you may see, the less you're going to have to rebalance. And I think that'll be the simplest way to explain it. There is like more mathematical equations that you can dive into.
Oh,
You
yeah,
want
yeah, and
to
I just wanna keep this very basic.
Cool.
We're trying to just give, the newly initiated or, those
Cool.
that are
Cool.
looking to
Yeah.
dip.
And that's perfect.
Yeah,
That would be the
yeah,
best way to explain it.
absolutely. Alright, so what are some of the platforms that, that you personally use, that you trust to do, your DeFi?
Yeah, I would say anyone watching this, I would go on DeFi Llama and I'd have a look at categories, and then I'd go from categories into dexes and or liquidity pools on DeFi Llama. That's what it'll be. And then I just look up some of the biggest dexes by TVL. Anything you see in the top is pretty much what we use. So we're talking the Uniswaps would definitely be the biggest. I'd say most of our clients use Uniswap. You've got the aerodromes, which I think, again, I'm not sure how familiar everyone is, but I'd say aerodrome on base is a massive one. You've got orcas. You've got, what are the two on Sui? Turbos and I use Turbos, but clients use the other one. I just use Turbos because I've used it forever. But what's the other one? Anyway, there's another one on Sui, and you can go on DeFi Llama,
So
like
you
Betsy
got
and her partner.
Suiland, Spring Sui, Bucket, CDP, Sui Dollar.
Yep, actually, you guys familiar with DeFi Llama?
Oh, yeah, no, I
Yeah,
I I
sweet. Yeah,
use it's like my go-to tool for almost everything.
yeah. There's one category there where you can check out dexes basically, and
Yeah,
have a look at
that's
some
where
of
I'm
the
at
biggest
now.
ones.
It's up on the screen.
Yeah. So anything in that realm, but I'd say most clients are really mostly on Uniswap. If we're talking EVM, we're talking Uniswaps, we're talking Aerodrome.
Aave,
Those, those are like the biggest ones. Aave for lending,
lending and
100%.
borrowing, Morpho, on
Yep,
base for lending and
Morpho for
borrowing.
sure.
Yeah. So,
We played
yeah,
with all
no,
of
and
it.
then
They've had to be around for a while, or come from really, really trusted platforms. Like when Aerodrome came out, we were just super stoked on it because we've been waiting a
oh,
while
yeah.
on that, but backed by really incredible people. Um, and then every once in a while, you see some interesting dexes on interesting chains come out, but we always treat that like a gamble. The APYs are so high because brand new assets on a new dex. Sometimes they also have it's how do I simplify it? We would call it marketing dollars behind it to get this thing actually moving and in momentum. And you
Yeah.
can ride the wave of those, but you're always kind of gambling There could always be exploits or hacks. Avi's been around forever. I think they've been hacked once or twice, but it was a very small amount early
Yeah.
in the day. So, you know,
No, and really, I mean, what it is, I know for me, one of the big reasons I use DeFi Llama is to keep an eye on volumes because
yep,
obviously, our fees that we earn in DeFi are directly proportional to the volumes. So yeah, I'm always looking to see what protocols are getting the volume, and Aerodrome has been killing it with Bitcoin and Ethereum pools. I mean,
yep.
they're beating out Uniswap. So
Yes, they are.
so yeah, I've been very impressed. Would if you don't mind me asking, do you have any Aero locks?
I do not. I never really played that one. I might, but it's an extremely tiny amount, and I've probably forgotten about it. I actually do think I have some, but I'm talking about it's almost none. I remember when let me just go back because I'm on DeFi Llama. There you are. Yeah, when Aerodrome came out, I played with it, but I just didn't really get crazy into it. I was I'll get some hate for this, but I was swing trading the Arrow through some of that crazy volatility that we were seeing. I would go
Nothing wrong
live in
with
our
that, man.
community. Yeah, we were swing trading. It was so easy to trade. Um, and I got some hate for that because they're like, dude, but I'm not, other than Bitcoin, and I'll probably get some hate for this too. And you don't have to copy what I say, but other than Bitcoin, I'm really not married to any platform, any token, any coin. And
Oh yeah, yeah,
I can very easily walk away from it. Or if there's an opportunity for profit, I will.
absolutely.
Bitcoin, I'd say that I would go to war for. Like, I really, really believe in the thesis and what Bitcoin stands for. Everything else is
It's a vehicle to make money.
yeah, and I think there's some great projects, but the space moves so fast that I'm just like, okay, like there's always innovation, and if you get married to something, even if it's really, really great, and you love the team and you love the people behind it,
Yeah.
there's other teams innovating just as quick, if not quicker, and it can be wiped out tomorrow. So it's not like I just don't. I see people like arrow to the moon, and it's like I'll hold this till
No.
I die, and it's just dropping and dropping and dropping. I'm just like, you do understand that Arrow can't control that no matter how awesome the team is. The market
Oh
dictates.
yeah.
And if the market dictates it's worthless, it's worthless. So I don't really lock things or hold things. I have some blue chips. Bitcoin I'll hold till the day I die. I keep accumulating more of it. Looking forward to passing it down to my son if he's a good steward of money. If not, then he gets shit. But he's only 6 months old, so we'll give him some time. Yeah,
Well, awesome, man. So, I know that a lot of people out there, they, even if they're in DeFi, they might not know what a DeFi aggregator is, like VFAT or something like that. And they are a very powerful tool if leveraged properly. I
yep,
mean, what can you tell people that are new to DeFi about the
sure.
pros and cons of using a DeFi aggregator like VFAT?
Yeah, we'll look at, like, let's just say a VFAT, like a crystal, let's just say, or whatever you want to talk about. Um, I think the pros outweigh the cons. You don't have to use them, but it makes the organization of your portfolio. I don't know why dexes haven't figured this out. Like, they do a pretty poor job
Right?
of.
The
I don't know
UI
why they
is
haven't.
terrible on
I don't know.
Aerodrome. I mean, I wish they would build it out like
Totally,
VFAT.
totally. I would absolutely use the native Aerodrome platform if they did that. We use VFAT pretty heavily in this instance. Makes it easy to manage, makes it easy to have a visual of your entire portfolio. The fees aren't ridiculous. There are automations that you can do if you do want to set up some automations. I don't use them. I take my fees manually because I enjoy
Yep.
it every Friday. But you can set up automations. I mean, of course, they're going to take fees off you. So the smaller your portfolio, the less automations you probably want to use because the percentage of your P&L. Anyone who's in business, you probably get a P&L every month, every quarter, maybe every year if you're a smaller business, and
That's
you
for
can
those of you
see
that
a
don't know, that's
breakdown.
profit and loss.
Yep, and you can see a breakdown of, like, also, like, your expenses and a percentage of your expenses and where they're going, and you can kind of see it over the months or over the quarters or over the years of, like, big drastic shifts in that. And if fees are eating up 10% of your portfolio, then you may want to be clicking less buttons or having less automation. So I guess that would be the downside of it. Also, I mean, if it's not trust, they don't hold this stuff, by the way. So VFAT isn't actually holding your fees. It's just we'll call it the middleman. I think that's a good way to explain it. and it's helping interact with the smart contracts and on your behalf, but they're not holding your funds. So even if VFAT goes down, you can still do your work on Aerodrome. That's no problem. But yeah, that would be the probably the cons, but the pros, I think, far outweigh the cons, as long as, of course, it's trusted, it's proven, and yeah.
Nice. So, what are some tips that you could give the audience as far as build like how if they're just getting started? What you would consider the foundation of building a solid DeFi portfolio?
Yeah. Um, I know this isn't like the sexiest thing to talk about, but I will start with the first thing is 100% the mindset. Like we have worked with enough investors to see a really common trend is like the entrepreneurs or the people with some business experience seem to do really well, and I ask them why. And you guys know about this is like not every month is a win. There's moments of doubt. Like there's no certainty in the entrepreneurship game. You don't have a certain paycheck. You don't have a safety net. It's you. And at some point, you build the trust in yourself that no matter what happens, I'll be okay because I have a proven record that even through the worst challenges and issues I've faced, I found a way to solve them. So I think they built this like resilience and this grit, and they're less driven by their emotions. I think emotions are a beautiful thing in real life, and I feel like actually we should feel more emotions in our day to day life and with other
But
people
it
and
will it
in
will
our
wreck
relation.
you when it comes to investing.
Yeah, most people are but then all of a sudden when it comes to money and investing, it's like we get heightened emotions and we make the craziest decisions. And I think a lot of kind of beginners in this space don't focus on the psychology enough, and they end up even following a good strategy, which we'll share some tips here, but I don't know, they're looking for certainty. They make very questionable decisions. So I'd say that would be number one, is like really audit yourself and watch yourself when you're doing this stuff. And when you lose a little bit of money, what's your go-to? What do you start doing? And like really study yourself so you can correct some of those biases that all of us humans have. And then it's time in the market. So a lot of people are trying to get in at ideal time, just staying out, waiting for the ideal time, or they get in, but then the markets pull back and they get out, and they're never in there long enough to have any kind of compound interest effect or anything work in their favor. Um, and again, that's probably more psychology than anything else. They're looking for that quick win, get rich overnight. Down to really practical tips, because you're like, well, okay, well, I'll work on my mindset, but like that's going to take me forever. True, just like any entrepreneur, you just jump into the ring, jump into the fire, like be in the arena. Start with whatever is a little bit of money to you. So what's an amount of money that you would go spend tonight with your friends? Maybe that's $10, $100,
So
maybe it's
something
five
you're
hundred
not going
bucks.
to freak out if you lose it.
Yeah, whatever that is,
Yeah.
and actually get into one or two positions. Don't wait. Like again, if you would go blow it on food or a night out or whatever, go invest it in crypto. Even if you don't know what you're doing, check out and make sure you subscribe to these guys' channels or check out any kind of there's a few free courses out there. Our free course and other people who talk about this stuff. Get in, take $10, get into two position, maybe get into one position, watch the dynamics of what happens when prices shift. Try to understand, why do I have ETH is dropping? Why do I have more ETH in this liquidity pool that's paired to
Yep.
USD? What's actually happening in there? And like actually learn that. Maybe get in, get out a few times. Play with some cross chain, like click buttons, start a fresh wallet. Don't have a ton of funds in it. Make your mistakes with 10 or $100. You're not making mistakes with thousands, tens of thousands, or hundreds of thousands. And I'm like, well, if you can't find a way to make money on $10, and if you constantly keep losing, your $10 is now worth 8, now it's worth 6, now it's worth
It
4.
doesn't matter if you increase the amount of money. It's just going to
You're just
increase
going
the
to lose more money.
losses. Yeah, yeah.
So we've had investors in Fast Track who are like, oh, I got $1,000,000 to invest. I'm like, have you ever invested? They're like, no. They're like, we're starting with $100. They're like, well, I paid all this money so I could invest millions. I'm like, let's just master investing $100 because DeFi scales. So let's just master the $100 or $1,000 game.
Yeah,
And if you
it
can
it scales
consistently
gains
start seeing
and
returns,
losses.
I'm just like, dude, I did a reel on this and I get a lot of messages after this. I'm really loving Instagram lately. I've been having a lot of fun on Instagram because there's a DM feature and YouTube doesn't. So I was talking with some people on this. It was like, what's the average wage in America? Like, what is it? Like $20 an hour, $30, $15? I'm not sure what,
Yeah, probably around there, like 20,
around
30
there, right?
bucks.
Let's say 15 to $30 an hour or something.
Yeah, yeah.
People will work and trade an entire hour of time they'll never get back, most likely working a job that they don't enjoy for $15, $20, $30. But if their liquidity pool or the crypto portfolio, in 5 minutes presents them with a 30, 40, $50 profit taking opportunity, they'll turn their nose up and say, well, that's not life changing. I won't take
Right?
profit for $50. And I'm just like, you do understand the bias and the mix up in psychology here is, if you can make $50 in 10 minutes, let's just say you enter a position, you earn some yield, and it's also the asset price goes up, and you have an opportunity to take $50 of profit in 10 minutes. That's like 500
Dude,
bucks or whatever that is an
if
hour.
you can get $50 in a day or 2 days and you didn't do anything for it, I
100%.
mean, that's just magic. That's like having a side business or a second
100%.
job that you
100%.
didn't do anything for.
So I just think
It's like
people
that.
enter this and they're just like, man, I want to make the millions. And I'm like, I get it because there's people who bought, Doge and became Dogecoin millionaires. Everyone wants to
Yeah, yeah.
replicate that. It's probably not going to happen. Like, start by making. I had a mentor so freaking long ago, and I was really struggling in business because we do see DeFi as a business. And I was trying to get all these clients, and I was trying to figure my life out. This is back in the fitness days, and they're like, yo. I know you're trying to build this huge business, and like I'm cheering for you, but let's just focus on like, can we make $1 today? Like, can you
Yeah,
go out to the marketplace and make $1? I was like,
yeah,
well, probably. They're like, well, go do it.
yeah.
Figure out how to make $1. And they're like, well, can you make two? Then can you make
Yep,
four? Then can you make
yep.
eight? And within a couple doubles, I was making $40, 50, like just breaking it down into small wins over time instead of I wanted to make $1 million. And he's like, dude, you got no fucking skills. You don't know what you're doing. That's probably not going to happen. Can you make $1? Can you just
Basically,
start with
what I usually tell people in a nutshell, whenever I'm trying to explain to them the best way to approach DeFi is start out with lending because it's pretty
yep,
basic. You
yep,
put some liquidity out there, you earn yield. There's no ranges, there's no impermanent loss, none of that. Then, I tell them, once you understand how that all works and, wallets and, depositing liquidity and using the platform and, stuff like that, then you can look at things like, like maybe, like a full range, position and
yep,
just put a little bit in there. And then
yep,
you can see, like you were talking about, the ebb and flow of the assets, where it's DCAing you out of one and into the other. And
yep,
so there's, you get a feel for how it works. And
yep,
once you understand that, concentrated liquidity isn't a big leap because then all you have to do is wrap your head around, okay, now it's in a range and I need to look at charts and figure out,
yep,
lines of resistance and support
yep,
and stay in that. So it's almost like you're just building on knowledge
yep.
and
Dude,
don't
you can
get
keep
your
going after that too.
yeah,
We've been releasing strategies on YouTube. It might be of interest to you, but like David's been in the freaking lab. So David is our kind of resident. He works with clients one on one and kind of manages the whole fast track side of things. But he's been coming up with like we battle test strategies before we actually start talking about them. But he's been doing
yeah,
all
yeah.
this freaking awesome delta neutral. He's hedging, he's shorting and longing, and he's basically isolating fees from market movement by
Yeah, doing like delta
by his
neutral
delta neutral
positions, stuff
strategy. And
like
it's
that.
not that complex, but if you jump to that before you've even learned how to lend, then it's just out of sequence. So you can
Well,
keep
in
going.
the
It's super
military,
advanced.
we call it crawl, walk, run. It's like, first you wanna crawl, and that's, learning terminology, learning how to use a
Got it.
wallet, learning how these platforms work. Then you walk, that's when you start, getting into these, liquidity pools and, a little more complex. And then once you got all that, then it's like, "All right, how can I use lending with borrowing to do a flywheel? How can
Got it.
I, use the yield from this one to put it
Yep.
into liquidity pools, and the yield I earn from those go in to pay off the loan that I took?" And, you start
Yep.
learning those, complex strategies.
Yep.
So, but if you try to jump straight into those complex strategies and you don't understand the basics, you're gonna get wrecked. And
Yep.
so I always tell people, start small, start with simple things like lending. And yeah, you're not gonna be making, 800% yields or 200% yields or maybe even 100% yield. You might be making 20% or 30%, but that's huge in investing. And if you
Crazy.
have that constantly earning for you and building up, then you take that and you start another one, and you take
Mhm.
those 2 and start another one, and you just compound that to where, if you're constantly putting money in and opening new positions and not just, going and spending that money, sacrificing short term for long term
Yep.
gain goals, then I mean, you're building out a future to where, like you said, you might only be earning $1 a day. The next day you might earn 2. The next week you might earn 4. But then
Dude, it's
you
crazy.
blink and you're making
And
a
people are
hundred
just
dollars
like,
a day.
it's like, oh, that's so expensive. It's like, I don't know, whatever. I don't know. It's that thing is, whatever they want to say. There's the $300 or $200 or $80. Like tires are $80. I'm just like, you do understand $1 per day is $365 per year, which
Yeah,
is like, I think anyone here can earn $1 per day, even if you're not starting with much capital. That's absolutely
yeah,
attainable to everyone. And then once you master that, it's just a double. Two starts becoming 600 something dollars per year.
yeah,
Um, a double from that is 1,200 a year. My first stock portfolio I built, I think I saved up like 50 freaking grand. It took me freaking forever. And I think
yeah.
my first year in that thing, I made something like 2,500 bucks in a year. And I was like, I didn't have to work I made 2,500, which is, what's that per day? I don't know. 250, $200 per month. What is that? I don't know. $5 per day,
It,
$6
it's
per
it,
day,
it,
$7 per
yeah.
day,
It'd be basically like yeah, something like that.
whatever that is. $2,500 divided by 365 is $6.85 per day. And I was over the moon. It took me a year and a half, 2 years to build up to that. But I was
Yeah,
like blown away that I made 2,500 bucks and I didn't have to work for it. And it's taxed very differently. And it just blows. And I was like starting to do okay in life. Like I was starting to save some money. I see people with no freaking money. They're they're broke, they're directionless, and they're just like, they turn their nose up at $6 per day. And I'm like, you do understand you're in that predicament. I'm saying this with love, by the way. You do understand you're in that predicament because you haven't humbled your damn self to being like, I'm
yes,
going to start with $1 per day, and then 2, and then 4, and then 8. And if you can get to $10 per day, you're making more money than the average investor makes in their stock, just so you know. And then you can scale from there and grow from there. So I don't know.
Well, those are
I think it's,
assets that are
again,
going
it's
to
all
appreciate
psychology. I'm
too.
telling you, it's all mindset. Was that, sorry, Jeff?
Those are assets they're going to appreciate too.
And that
we can.
They're
I can
not going
barely
to
hear
be.
you, Jeff.
Oh,
new mic, new tech.
Yeah,
yeah,
there you go.
man.
That's better.
But no,
Okay.
Jeff is
Okay.
spot on. I agree.
Your assets are going to appreciate too, unless
Mhm.
you have it all going to USDC. But like with the Arrow, when I had my USDC wrapped ETH concentrated liquidity pool, I had
Yep.
like 500 or 600 bucks, and I was earning, more than $1 a day.
Let's go.
And I rolled most of that back into some airdrop hunting,
Let's
so
go.
I'm able to capitalize off that and then roll it into airdrop hunting stuff. And like I tell people with these test nets, you can utilize, you don't have to pay for anything. And some of these projects, I've gotten thousands from test net projects before, and just fucking roll that back into some DeFi and you can,
Let's go.
free money.
Well, and that's the thing is it's OPM, it's other people's money. And and I put it to people this way too. If you're walking down the street and once a week, you're walking down the street and you look down and there's a $20 bill, are you just going to walk past it?
Totally.
Are you going to pick that shit up?
Totally.
It might only be, $20 a week, to start. But then it might be, 40 and then 60 and then 80. And even if you're only
100%.
making a couple $100 a month, I mean, that's a car payment.
Dude, it's
I mean,
crazy. I know. I know.
I mean,
I know.
it's like, it can change, it doesn't seem like a lot, but it adds up quick. And then
I
if you're
think it's like social
compounding it,
media has rotted people's brains because you just see
it
the
really
highlight reel
has.
of people. And I believe me, I've been in the game long enough that I have most of the masterminds you can think of, even ones that were like $100,000 to enter, like any kind of entrepreneurial masterminds. Any of these guys you see on social media have probably been part of the mastermind or have been within that community. And I at first was shocked, and now I'm just used to it on how many. And I know some of these guys, the big names on Instagram or whatever. I know their actual financial situation, and it's just not all it seems to be. So with that said, I think we see it and we're like, well, that guy got rich within 6 months, and so I'm going to get rich within 6 months. And it's this false expectation of like social media, porn is ruining people's brains, TikTok's ruining people. It's all just ruining people's brains.
Yeah,
Um, and then they enter this and they're like, well, it's like, man, if we could just
they're looking for that endorphin hit.
if I don't know, I feel like I have quite a bit of money, and if someone gave me a $20 bill, I'd be extremely grateful for it because I understand the
Hell yeah,
value of a dollar. I come from the dirt, and so it just blows my mind that people who don't have a dollar to their name would turn their nose up at $20 when it's like it goes a long way, and if it's compounded over time, we've all seen compound interest graphs. It's like the first few years looks like nothing,
yeah.
or the first few swings, the first few attempts, but it starts stacking up. Last year, I got a all in 12 months, and I had so many people message, are these on payments? Did you pay them cash? Are they actually yours? But I got a $150,000 Dodge Charger RT, $300,000 Lamborghini, a Audi R8, a Porsche 911. I bought all my dream cars all in like
Yeah,
12
yeah,
months, and people were like,
yeah. I've seen them all.
and I'm like, I felt like I did people a disservice because it seemed like such a quick win. I could have bought the Lamborghini 3 years ago, but I'm like, compound, compound, compound my money. And at some point, and dude, I started on the oil rigs and it was like a couple grand in my investment portfolio. It's like
Yeah,
compounded over time. You will get to the point where like any stupid stuff you want to buy, um, will become a reality. But I think, I don't know. I love delaying gratification. I read all the Stoic texts when I first started improving my
dude,
life.
I
Like,
am huge into stoicism. I read freaking meditations daily.
there's like a big
Marcus Aurelius.
100%. I think that's like honestly the cornerstone of success because if we could learn how to delay I took it too far where I was delaying gratification later than now because I wasn't allowing myself to reward myself and feel the
Yeah,
joy
yeah,
and actually experience these things. So at some point it goes too far. But if you can delay the gratification, don't increase your lifestyle. I was making 100 grand a month. Um, 5 years ago in a business, I joined a big mastermind, and there was guys who, when they started making 100 grand a month, they were buying the Rolex, they were buying the McLarens, they were blowing
yeah,
it all. I was driving a 2012 Dodge Ram pickup. It was nice, lifted, Hemi, had like 40,000 original mile or 40,000 miles short box crew cab, so it looks really
yeah,
good when you got a 6-inch lift and 35s. Love that thing. And
yeah,
they were all like, "How much you make?" I was like, "Dude, I'm making like $1 million a year." And they're like, "Why are you driving that?" And I was like, "Because I'm investing it all." And
yeah,
now it's like most of those guys are out of business and like they're just like most athletes.
yeah.
And I just wanted to set myself up where I had honest, I mean, trailer park back in the day when I made that agreement,
It's
like fuck
no,
your money.
it's
Like
like
I don't need your
I
money.
refuse to go back there. That's
Yeah.
my mindset is I will
And like
not be
fuck your
broke.
money. Like you can't I can shut my business down tomorrow and still be okay. Like I don't need your approval or your money. I
Exactly.
really want to genuinely help, but like that what to me was the ultimate goal. And yeah, and then you can buy the stupid stuff, like the Lamborghinis. I promise you, it won't. It after a week, it's just a car. It won't bring you much joy.
No.
But knowing you don't have a payment or knowing you don't have stress is a nice bonus. People are
And that's what I focus
overextending.
on is not having debt. Like my I where I live, I have 20 acres. I built my own cabin
Dude, let's go.
myself. Lived in a tent. Built my own cabin,
I love it.
and that's what you see behind me.
I love it.
But but yeah, I mean, I sold everything. Made a bunch of money in real estate. Sold everything. Moved up here. Paid cash for everything. Paid cash for
100%.
my truck. I have no debt, and my
100%.
money. I got my military retirement, and pretty much all my money is in investments and in DeFi.
Let's go.
And yeah, and it's just I retired at 40. I don't
Let's
have to
go.
worry about money ever again.
100%.
It's
Yeah.
because time to me is more valuable than money because we all have a finite amount of time on this planet. We don't know how much of it we have, and no matter how much money you make, you can't replace it. So
I agree.
that's
I
kind of
agree.
my viewpoint on it all. But
I
hey,
agree.
Jeff,
I'm like, get your time. I do think every man needs a mission. You get your time back so you can actually partake, like you guys are doing here. You can partake on a worthwhile mission that doesn't have to pay you instantly. We
yeah,
started CryptoLabs, and I'm like, I don't care if this works or not. We're going to do it
yeah,
because we love it. And oftentimes those things end up, actually working because you're not desperate for it. And then I told myself if I am ever in an opportunity where I just love cars and love engines. I have a hoist at home, so I just love automobiles. I have a membership at the track I'm getting. Like I just love that world. If I'm ever in a position where investment income can pay for all that stuff, like I'm in, but I'm not gonna sacrifice time and working on the oil rigs or trying to just chase money to be able to impress people. And then I think if I mean compound interest does this thing. If you stay the course, you can have your time and you can enjoy your hobbies and passions. And maybe you're into guns. You can get all the best freaking guns you want, and just like
Oh
it's
yeah.
fun. Right? Yeah,
No, it's yeah, no, it's very powerful. I mean, I'm pretty open about my portfolio. I share it with the community, pretty often, and then show them that the first month, I made 5 grand. Second month because the market was dumping, I made three, and then it was around two, and now it's around one.
let's go.
Um, but you know, I it's I have been earning, and so even with the market dumping, my portfolio still looks the same as it did 4 months ago because of my earnings. My earnings have plussed up enough
Yep,
to where when the market took a dump, it made up for the dump.
let's go.
So it's
And you
I
have
mean
more assets, so your dollar value is down, but you have more assets.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up. That's what I tell people to focus on is focus because if you're buying projects that or you're investing in liquidity pools that include projects that you believe in long term, then again, you can look at your token count and like some of my bags I've doubled. Like my
Let's
arrow
go.
bags, I've doubled
Yep,
those. There's Plume, I've doubled that. And when the market rebounds, I'm gonna be sitting in a much better position than I am, than I
let's
was
go.
before. Because, like you said, I'm keeping that stoic mindset, long-term focus, unemotional. I'm not, like that ETH position. I'm not locking in those losses, panicking. I'm just waiting for the markets to rebound, get back in range, and then, I'll probably, use some of that liquidity and move it somewhere else. But I'm
Let's
not
go.
going to do that until, I'm back into range and earning.
Let's go.
So then it goes out the top and I have to rebalance anyway. So yeah, it's so important. And I'm glad at the beginning that you brought that up. It really is, and I might start using that too. Is the first step really is adopting the right mindset and discipline before you enter this because it really it's if you got into crypto because you saw a social media post of a meme coin and somebody became a millionaire or somebody went 100x leverage on a trade and made a bunch of money and you're just looking to get rich quick, DeFi isn't for you. It you really have to have a long-term mindset. You're going to make good money,
Yep.
but you have to think a more almost like the charts. You're not looking at a 15-minute chart when you're doing DeFi. You're
Yep.
looking at a day chart or a week
Yep.
chart or a month chart. And the longer that you can keep those positions in range, that's why you want to have a longer term mindset. But
Yep.
hey, Jeff, does the community have any questions before we close out, or do you?
I actually wanted to ask, what are you doing with your Bitcoin holdings in DeFi? Are you utilizing it on any Bitcoin DeFi dApps? Because we've been kind of looking
Yep.
in some protocols that are coming out utilizing Bitcoin and
Dude, there's some
DeFi.
really good I mean, if you're cool with like 30, 40, 50, 60, 70% on your BTC, Airdrome has really, really awesome volume for those
Yes,
pools.
they do.
Um, so I utilize that. Now, in full transparency, I do have a lot of Bitcoin on my not a lot, but I have Bitcoin on my ledger that is not on any, I have this for better or worse here. I genuinely love Bitcoin. Like I genuinely love it. And to me, it's like the only asset that I'm actually totally okay holding without creating yields on it. Now I do lend it out over Aave and take. You've guys seen like the. I'm sure you've talked with your community on how you can like if you have long term holdings that maybe don't generate a tremendous amount of yield. Like maybe you can't find really good opportunities for Bitcoin. You can lend it on a platform like Aave and borrow against it, and then go actually create some meaningful yields in other assets while locking up that Bitcoin. So as it appreciates, you can pay off some debt or whatever you want to do with it. Your loan to value ratio gets healthier and healthier. We got quite a bit of videos where I had a few $100,000 of Bitcoin lent out over the blockchain. I'd borrow against it, go create yield with it, and then just go buy more Bitcoin with it. So, but yeah, Bitcoin's the only one I get kind of weird about. Of like, I don't. Yeah, I really enjoy holding it. And I like locking it up on my ledger and knowing that I'm going to keep it for 25 years. But yeah, there's some good opportunities on Aerodrome if you check it out.
Yeah, and I got
But how did
that.
you
I got
capitalize
that
off the
pulled up.
last bear market? With
Uh,
Bitcoin going down, did you have because I was kind of thinking, how can we capitalize off of the price going down in the bear market while earning return and stuff?
there is really only one way, or unless you get really advanced, there's only two ways. But I mean, you
Short
can
the
short
market.
the markets if you
Yeah.
really want to start. Um, like if you really want to start um, trying to predict where the markets are going. Again, I don't really play that game. So like, yes, my portfolio value on my Bitcoin is absolutely down from 10. What do we hit so far? Like we hit
It was like
one.
104 or something like
Yeah,
that.
I thought it was like
No,
106 or something.
It probably was.
But I've been buying Bitcoin, you know, I remember last bear market it was like 16 or 17 and I was getting as much of it as I can. So like I'm not too interested in like, oh, we hit a 106, now we're at 84, whatever we're at, 85. Like that doesn't really interest me too much. I do understand the pain that someone might feel if they buy the top at 106 and now it's 84. It's like, oh my God, I've got to go all the way back up. Totally get that. Um, you can do that. There's not that many opportunities to like get yields and returns on just single-sided Bitcoin anywhere. You can't lend it out for anything. You can, and maybe there's some more degen platforms where you can do something with your Bitcoin. So I don't really see an opportunity to be able to capitalize on Bitcoin as prices go down. To me, it's just something I hold and I want more of, and I'll find ways to capitalize on the market with my other assets and just buy more Bitcoin with the yields, with the profits. So again, if you're a smaller investor with less capital, like Bitcoin might not actually be that attractive to you. You might start with different assets so you can generate yield,
Mm.
and then maybe with those yields, you're buying Bitcoin. But yeah, if you go and spend all your money on Bitcoin, you are limited to what you can do with it unless you lend it out, borrow against it. But then you're leveraged, and if the markets pull back, you're going to feel more pain than if you didn't do that. You could, I mean, for more sophisticated investors here, remember that you can go short. So like even on Aave, if you lend out stables, borrow against it,
Yeah.
and convert those stables into something as prices are going down, when you repay that borrowed capital, you still only own one ETH. So you owe one ETH back, but now that ETH is priced lower, you can buy ETH back at a lower price and pay
Keep the
that back.
difference.
But you are speculating at that point, and if you're wrong, it's going to cost you. So to me, again, I play the long game. I'm like, where's DeFi going to be in 10 years? Where's crypto going to be? And the assets I hold, where's it going to be in 10 years?
Actually,
If we dropped
before I
to
forget,
$40,000 tomorrow and saw a massive wipeout in the crypto markets because Trump made it illegal or something like that, um, I'll be like, oh, okay, well, let's just keep buying more of it, because just like the stock market and just like everything else, again, crypto's a little newer, so that's a little ignorant to say, but I'd have to revisit my thesis at that point, but I would probably 99% certain say, okay, like don't give a shit. Let's just keep getting more of this stuff because I know where I want to be in 10 years.
well, that's the last question that I want to ask, and I'm glad you brought that up because I almost forgot. Where do you see DeFi going? Because right now, I mean, we're seeing some awesome, yield. We're earning awesome yield. I mean, like right now, I'm on Aerodrome, and it's, like wait 5 seconds, and this is going to go
Yeah,
away.
right.
But like I'm seeing 2,000%, on USDC, Coinbase wrapped Bitcoin.
Let's go.
Um, but you know, at some point, I feel as DeFi matures and stuff like that, that these the amount or the
Yeah,
power of the
institutions will be
earn.
in there. There'll be large
Yeah.
amounts of capital, more players
So
in the game.
yeah, tell me where you see DeFi going in the future.
Yeah. I am really, really happy with beating just what the stock market returns for me. So, like, I know this isn't the sexiest thing, but if I can do 25% of my money, like I'm really, really happy by that. There's a really cool real estate deal that I might get into, and it's around 25% a year until all capital is paid back. And then I get 10% equity in the deal. I'm like really excited by that. I'm like pursuing that aggressively because I really want in. Again, this comes down to psychology. There's a lot of people who've never invested and they're entering DeFi and they're expecting some crazy stuff. So first of all, I'm not opposed to seeing yields get a little more steady, more liquidity in the markets, maybe some of this crazy stuff die off a bit. Two, I think there's going to be different levels. So, you could like put money and give money to, let's just say, institutions or some kind of funds and generate a yield off it that you're happy with, but you don't touch anything.
Mhm.
And then there's going to be guys like you and me and probably the audience that wants to provide liquidity themselves, and they'll probably earn some kind of different tier of yield, or they'll be liquidity providers. Not sure what that'll look like, but I just know that I think for the average user, it'll smooth out to where they feel like they're using an app. It's really a dApp, but it feels much more like an app, and it's just easier to on ramp and actually provide liquidity. They'll be paying fees because of the ease of use for that app, and I think the fees will just go back to liquidity providers who are more, more um, um, I don't know the word
Forward
I'm looking
thinking.
for. Actually doing it
Yeah.
um, without the need for those kind of apps. I'm looking forward to better security. I'm looking forward to it being, I know there's a good what's that MetaMask, or there's this plugin that you can send crypto through it, and at least it was big a few years ago. I don't know if it ever worked. Maybe it didn't, but if you sent crypto, it held it for like 10 minutes and you could reverse that transaction if you ended up doing it. There's just going to be more protocols that are looking out for the actual user so it can be like
Gotcha.
confirmed. And yes, you
Like
can
an
get
escrow. Like there's almost an
something like that.
escrow in there. Yeah.
Um, but I can't see a world, and I've thought about this because I want people to like challenge me on this, but everyone who's challenged me, it just hasn't changed my conviction. If anything, like I love having a conversation with someone who disagrees with me because it'll either add to my conviction
Yeah.
or it'll make me question my thesis, which is great too. Like I'm not
But yeah,
about
you
simpering
gotta you
speak.
gotta stay out of echo
I
chambers
want to
for
be
sure.
challenged,
Yeah.
but I'm like, there's no way that blockchain, the use cases for it, DeFi, peer to peer, not wanting government involved in, not wanting centralized bank involvement. I think there's really cool ideas on uh, communities basic creating their own currency. So there is absolutely no need for the banking system for those communities. They're basically creating countries that aren't governed by borders anymore at that
Yeah.
point, because you have an idea, you have a code that the people live by, and you have your own
Currency.
currency. You're
Yeah.
your own country. You don't need a border. Um, Really, really cool. I'm like that's not going away. If anything, I think more and more people are more and more open to that because I mean, our political system, and not to get political, I don't care what side you're on. It's just all fucked, and I think we can
Yeah, yeah,
all
yeah.
somewhat agree with that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
it's not going to get better. So um, I just want to be in it so I can spot the opportunity. People are just like, you ever see that meme? I'm sure there's versions of it, but it's like, oh, he just got lucky. And then it shows like a
Oh,
zoomed out
yeah.
apartment, and there's like 50 apartment windows, and all the lights are out. And then you have one and it zooms in and it's like it's 2 a.m. and the guy's on the computer studying. And it's like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, you just got lucky. You were just in the game for a really long period of time when most
Yeah.
people weren't. And eventually, yes, you got lucky, but you placed yourself there. So I just know if I'm in this game, the
Well,
luckier I get.
you invested yourself, your time, and,
Yeah,
and your money, into it, and you just as easily could have lost everything and wasted all that time, but it paid off for you. I mean,
let's
and
go.
that's the way any business works or
And you just
any
got to get
investment.
lucky once, dude. Like it's so true that like you'll keep swinging, 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 and then you connect. And it's like
Yeah.
now the game is not to F it up. A lot of people F it up and they keep, anyway, that's a whole different, there's like
Yeah.
I have a mentor. It's like struggle to success. A lot of people really master the struggle game, so struggling to success, and then when you hit success, you don't know anything else but struggle and chaos, because most successful people grew up in pretty chaotic environments, and so they're
Mhm.
addicted to the chaos, and they'll actually sabotage themselves and make it hard because that's what they're addicted to. And then it's like struggle to success, and then it's success to fulfillment, and most people never walk that path. Because it's a very different mode and a very different abundant mindset. It just, the game changes. But anyways, if you see this all the time, right? Guys get rich because they get lucky and then they F it all up. And they're back to where they started. It's a very
Yeah,
common story because they never change their identity. They got money, but they're still poor in the way that they look at the world, or they're broke the way they look at the world. So again, always comes down to psychology.
absolutely. Well, I appreciate you coming on, brother.
Yeah,
And
that's fun.
yeah, and we definitely, I would love to have you on again if you're game. You know,
Cool.
I definitely would enjoy talking further. But
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that'd
yeah,
be
we
some
got
more
cool
on
way
the
to collab in the
strategies
future.
too.
what's that?
'Cause, the strategies too, the different, because when I first started getting more into DeFi, I was looking at setting the ranges and stuff, and it reminded me of some options trading strategies
Yep.
from like
Dude, we'll
uh
bring next time we'll bring Cullen on, David on, Gordon on.
yeah.
We'll bring the whole crew. They're developing strategies all of the time. So like I get
Absolutely.
I get most of the credit because I'm the dude on YouTube. Um, there are wickedly smart people behind the scenes that make this happen. I'd love to bring them on and feature them. They're super
Yeah.
smart guys.
Oh
No,
yeah,
we're
that'd be
totally down to do
great.
some collaboration, man.
Sweet.
Well,
Thanks, guys.
I appreciate everyone in the chat. It's definitely, if you have any questions, reach out to us. We're always here to help. Anybody claiming to be us and asking for your wallet, it's not us. Anybody that's sending you links, it's not us. Our Discord will be up, here soon with Discover Crypto and Blockchain Basement and all them, and it will be a community that you can get involved with and ask your peers, ask us, and of course, like we talked about at the beginning of the episode, Lucas and CryptoLabs Research has some great resources over there. By all means, wherever you can find good, solid information, go and find it. We'll seek it out and point you in the right direction as well. Um, this is all about community. Something this early on in the technology, something like DeFi, is you have to find good communities, get involved with them, with good solid people that aren't taking advantage of you or trying to take your money, and just align yourself with successful people and disciplined people, and because really, if you want to see where you're going to be in life, look at the people around you, and that's pretty much where you're going to be in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. So make sure that you are aligning yourself with successful people, people that are more knowledgeable than you, people that challenge you, they call you out on your bullshit, whatever. People that want you to be happy and successful. Those are the people you need to align yourself with. So with that, thank you, Lucas. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, everybody in the chat. Until next time, Veteran Crypto out.
Thanks, y'all.
Peace.
See you.